Special lecture by Professor M.D. Srinivas on the topic Classical Indian Discipline of Producing and Sharing in Painting with some reflections on current situations. I request you to keep your mobile phones in silent mode. We'll start our program with the invocation. I kindly request you all to stand.
सहनाववतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
We are glad to welcome and introduce today's speaker, Professor M.D. Srinivas, and extend a warm and cordial welcome to him. We are delighted to have our beloved director, Professor Annam, in our midst. I request Professor Srinivas and our director to kindly offer flowers to Swami Vivekananda. Now I request Son to present a fruit bouquet to our guest as a token of welcome. One of the most important texts of Vedanta, the Taittiriya Upanishad, says that all beings that exist on earth are being born of food. Thereafter, they live by food. Again, ultimately, they go back to it and merge to become food. So verily, food is the eldest of all creatures. On that basis, food is called the medicines of all. Aushadam uchyate sarvam. Those who meditate upon Brahman as food will obtain all food. From food are born all beings, and after being born, they grow by food. Food is eaten by all beings, and in the beings of all beings are eaten by food. Therefore, food is called Annam. The importance of producing and sharing food in plenty has been repeatedly emphasized by our ancient seers. Today we have among us one of the most eminent scholars of our country, Professor M.D. Srinivas. Professor Srinivas did his MSc in physics from Bangalore University in 1971. He then moved to US and obtained PhD degree in theoretical physics from the University of Rochester, New York in 1976. In the same year, he joined the Department of Theoretical Physics, University of Madras, and served there up to 1996. Professor Srinivas held many honorary positions like Founder Director, PPST Foundation, and Founder Chairman, Center for Policy Studies, Chennai, members of Advisory Board on History of Sciences, Indian National Commission for History of Sciences, and Center Sanskrit Board. He is the Vice Chairman of the governing body of Indian Institute of Advanced Study, Shimla, since 1998. His vast area of specialization includes theoretical physics, history and philosophy of science, scientific and technological tradition of India, Indian society, economy and polity. He has a total number of 30 publications in theoretical physics to his credit. He is the author and co-author of many books like Annam, Bahu, Kurvita, Recollecting the Indian Discipline of Growing and Sharing Food in Plenty, Measurements and Quantum Probabilities, Religious Demography of India, etc. Now, without further delay, I would like to invite our guest to deliver his speech.
honored to be in this August gathering. I'm grateful to the Vivekananda Space Circle group invited me to give this talk, and then especially honored that my esteemed former friends, Professor Chunjunwala and Professor Ramurthy are also here. It's strange to be speaking on the issue of growing and sharing food in the Indian Institute of Technology, but we will not be speaking on technicalities of the subject. It's the social, political and moral economy of India that's the issue. Normally we do not know that in any issue when we debate that classical India would have had a position on this, or in Indian history we would have attended to the particular issue in a particular way. I think about 3 weeks ago this Bloomberg and TV with Tim Sebastian had a discussion on whether Indians are mean. Lots of discussion on how corporate India is helping Indians, or how corporate India is not helping Indians, how Indian state is helping, how our well-to-do people are doing otherwise. And occasionally some reflections that much of our problems may go back to the fact that we have a civilization which had a different viewpoint. But what this viewpoint our civilization had, what did Indian culture think about charity or meanness, was hardly articulated in that entire discussion, except putting some blames occasionally. So this is the general status of our knowledge on most aspects of Indian civilization. So I will be taking up a particular one. I will split my talk roughly to 3 parts. In the first part I will tell you some essential features of what did Indians think about this discipline of sharing, and why it played a very important role in all our classical texts, our foundational classical texts. Second, third of my talk, I will try to say something about how this issue was handled in Indian history. What do our historical records say on this issue? Finally, I will say something about the last third will be on our contemporary situation. So the title of this talk is from this Taittiriya Upanishad statement, Annam Bahu Kurvita, that we should multiply Anna, that's food, manifold. We should ensure an abundance of food all around, and that's the vrata, that is the invariable discipline. And my friend who introduced me also referred roughly to this quotation from Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad, as you all know, had this very famous quotation, Atithi Devo Bhava. This is similar to that. It basically is saying that you should ensure by whatever means an abundance of food in your place. Let nobody who comes there go without receiving an adequate amount of food from you. And in your own life or even otherwise, what you are bound to get is really dependent on how much you give. This is the general sort of theme of this part of Taittiriya Upanishad. And this was a part of this book that my friend Bajaj and we wrote more than 16, 17 years ago. So much of this section, what I am going to tell you, will come from that. About 80 years back, Mahatma Gandhi, first I want to start from Bhagavad Gita, how it talks about this issue of sharing. About 85 years ago, Mahatma Gandhi came and addressed the students of Hindu high school. And he asked the audience, how many of you have read the Gita? I think nobody raised their hands. How many of you have a copy of Bhagavad Gita in your house? 7, 8 people raised their hands. And he said that, look, this is the kind of situation we have in India. And Gandhiji was especially insistent that students should look at the Gita, especially its chapter 3, which is talking about Karma Yoga, and in that it is explaining the very important concept of Yajna as the basic feature of the moral economy of any society and individual's life. A similar call was made by another sort of great exponent of Indian thought in the last century, which is the Paramacharya of Kanchipuram, who in his message to the country at the time of independence drew attention to the fact that our national flag bears this chakra. This Dharma chakra occurs in Bhagavad Gita, as you will soon see, and he thought that that idea of Dharma chakra was very important for independent India. So what is this issue that the Gita is talking? So according to Bhagavad Gita, that at the time of creation, the creator created the notion of yajna also. Now yajna in ordinary parlance, translated as sacrifice, is understood as putting some offerings in fire. That is also yajna, but the concept of yajna as given in Gita is much larger, as given in all our classical texts is much larger. And Gandhiji was perhaps one of those few exponents who understood this larger concept of yajna and its social significance for us today. So Gita says that the most important discipline for anyone is that he should consume after or the remains of what obtains after the performance of yajna. And the main concept of yajna in Gita is that you should have offered a share of whatever you are going to consume to all aspects of creation. Now what are all these aspects of creation? Gita doesn't say it in that detail. This is stated in all other texts of Indian literature. But the crucial point is, those who consume for themselves without taking out a share for all aspects of creation that is accessible to them, they are siddhas. They are eating bhunjate te tvagam papa. They are committing papa. They are committing a violation of the inviolable discipline that one should follow. So then Gita talks about this cycle, that this abundance that we see from nature for our consumption is due to an interdependent cycle of mutual give and take. That this abundance that nature gives arises from a very disciplined way of living on the part of human beings also. If this disciplined way of living on the part of human beings is not followed, the abundance that the nature gives is not going to be there. And so it talks of the cycle of anna, then yajna, the parjanya, then the yajna, and then the human action. And then Gita concludes. This is all in the third chapter of Gita, verses 8 to 14. So this is the main point that Gandhiji and Paramacharya were talking, that this chakra which has been set into motion in the time of creation itself, that all our activity should take into account the mutual interdependences of all aspects of creation, and that any consumption on the part of humans should be preceded by our sharing a portion of it with all aspects of creation. This is the chakra of mutual independence that Bhagavad Gita is talking. And one who does not keep this cycle moving, he is abhayu, he is a man whose life is in sin. Indriya Rama, who just lives for his own senses and does not live for any higher ideals. So this is the part of the essence of Karma Yoga in Gita, and as I said, in many of writings of Gandhiji, you will find a very detailed description of his understanding of this notion of yajna. So to recapitulate, basically, that universe is a cycle of give and take, and between different aspects of creation, whatever is earned or produced by man is in fact taken from other aspects of creation, and it can be rightfully consumed only after he gives back a share of it. And consuming for oneself without performing this duty is a violation of the order of nature. So it is not that by giving you are earning a merit. This is the difference between the Indian civilizational view and perhaps other civilizations which emphasize on charity or giving. Charity or giving is not a matter of your earning merit. Not sharing is a violation of fundamental discipline of moral life. So this is the idea that is built into the fundamental text. Now we shall see how it is built into various aspects of Indian social life as discussed in our classical text. So one aspect in which it is built into our social life is the idea of Panchamahayajna. Panchamahayajna is the inviolable discipline that every householder has to do before he sets down to consume his food. And this is a very major ritual enjoined upon all householders irrespective of caste, community, etc. And in fact about 200 to 300 verses of our major Dharma Shastra Manusmriti is devoted to this. It's about 1/9 of the book, 1/8 of the book, to explain what is the principle behind it and how one should do this. So, the Panchamahayajna involves that you acknowledge the share that is due to the Devas, to the Rishis, to the Pitras and the Bhutas, and then to the Manushyas, and then consume. So, this will include all creatures which are crawling on the ground, all the birds, then the natural forces, then your ancestors, then the great Indian tradition, that to the Rishis, and finally to all the men around you, all the humans around you, and finally you consume, and this is the discipline which is enforced on any householder. And this is the verse from Manusmriti, that a proper householder is one who consumes the leftovers after performing Panchamahayajna. And in fact, people who have seen the performance of our obsequies to our elders, Pitras, etc., these are the Vedic verses which come in them. I will perhaps skip this and come to this, which is more well known. This is a part of a very famous Vedic sukta called the Anna Sukta. It's also there in Rigveda, in the end of it. And most people would have heard that phrase, Kevalabho Bhavati Kevaladi. One who merely eats without sharing is actually eating adha, that is sin. So these are the kind of very forceful words in which the Vedas, the Gita, the Dharma Shastras speak about this issue. And now there is a larger philosophical principle behind this idea of sharing, and this is that you are born in this universe, you are born indebted to all aspects of creation, and that's why you have to return to them. This indebtedness is not so direct, that you don't return to, in usual indebtedness you take something from someone and return to the same person. Here you understand this cosmic indebtedness and you keep returning, and that's why how you keep the cycle of cosmic mutual give and take going. And this is from the Shatabata Brahmana, that one who is born is always born in Rina, that he is indebted. And then the Shatabata Brahmana goes to explain that you are indebted to the Pitras, you are indebted to the Devas, the Rishis, and the Bhutas, and all the humans around you. And the Panchamahayajna is your way of returning or sort of handling this indebtedness. So we are born indebted, not born in sin, as per the Hindu text. Now I come how this was enforced at the level of the polity. I mentioned that how the householder's life is regulated by this principle of sharing. And householder was thought of as the very basic constituent, the economic producer of the society. Now how is the state enjoined to act under this principle? So we have this idea of Ramarajya. This is from the first chapter of Ramayana, where the essence of Ramarajya is that all are contented, all are in good health, all are free from scarcity and fear. Even more so that the cities and the countryside are filled with the grains and wealth. This is one of the basic characteristics of Ramarajya, is that there is abundance of wealth, not only in cities but all over the Rashtra, all over the state. Now, one of the major texts of Indian polity is the Shanti Parva of Mahabharata, where Bhishma tries to explain to Yudhishthira what are the fundamental principles of what we can call as good governance today. How is the proper Raja Dharma to be followed? And one of the important things is ensure that the basic economy is strong, and the basic economy according to Indian thought is agriculture, cattle protection and trade. So this is the fundamental economy. This has to be, it's one of the major duties of the state to protect this. And then the state also has to ensure that the peasants are not oppressed, and it has to finally ensure that there is nobody who is going hungry in the entire domain of the king. And any king who does not do this is considered not worthy his name. Of course, he is a sinner and all that is. So this is Bhishma telling Yudhishthira that the peasantry are the people who are carrying the burden. It's not the king who is carrying the burden of the society or the state. The king is the person who has to organize that the society runs. And one has to ensure that the social activity, the basic economy is strengthened. And then Yudhishthira is being told that if children are looking at others eating with hungry eyes, or if a learned person is dying, is sleeping without food, or even if anybody in the entire society is found hungry and lying around, this sin of that goes to the king, and that king who is not aware of this and is not acting on this is not really a king worthy of the name, and nothing great can be expected from his kingdom. This is stated somewhat much more forcibly in one of the great Dharma Shastra texts. It is called the Apastamba Dharma Sutra. And this is like a forceful injunction on the king that Nachasya Vishaye Chudha Rogena Himatapabhyam Va Avaside Abhava Buddhi Purva Va Kashti. Nobody should suffer from Chudha, hunger, Roga, diseases, or even by cold, extreme cold and extreme heat. Either by the absence of these or by conscious violation of the various actors in society. And this should happen to nobody. This is the kind of very forceful injunction that you find in classical Indian texts. And one more injunction that's very important. So how do you ensure this? To ensure this, it is the business of the state to see that those who are unprovided for, those who are destitute, that they are taken care of is a very important constraint or a duty put upon the king. These verses are from Mahabharata. This is again Bhishma being telling Yudhishthira that the destitutes, the old people, the vidhavas and young women, all these people, it's the duty of the king to see that the king has to partake of all things only after taking out proper shares for the weak, which means he has to have proper institutional mechanisms put in place to see that this sort of people who do not have the capacity to work out a livelihood for themselves are totally taken care of, they are provided for. Again, these things are always stated more strongly in these Dharma Sutras. Just like that Apastamba Dharma Sutra, there is this Gautama Dharma Sutra, which really puts only two charges on the state. One is the Vedas have to be taken care of because they cannot take care of themselves. So the Brahmanas who are well versed in Vedas have to be protected. Protected means that you have to give them enough food, shelter and clothing, means for livelihood. And the second thing is Nirutsahascha Abrahmanan, all those people in society who do not have the means to have a livelihood for themselves, it is the business of the state to see that they are provided a livelihood. Okay, so now I am more or less through with the I see I'm going, let's go up first. I am through with the some main substance of the way the principle of sharing was thought of in classical Indian texts. Now let me say something about historically how. Now one thing that's unique about India in this photograph is that India is one of those lands in the world which is very well provided for naturally. More than 50-55% of the land mass here is cultivable. The world average is only about 10% of the land mass. So, if you take what was known as Indian subcontinent till 60 years ago, it has about 190 million hectares of cultivable land. And what we now have as the Indian Union has about 160 million hectares of cultivable land. You can compare it with USA with 177 million hectares, Russian Federation 126, China 124, Europe 77, etc. And that more than 50% of the land is cultivable is one of the unique features of the Indian landmass, with great number of rivers and water sources. And with this kind of a thing, all available historical records in India do show up a very high level of agricultural productivity achieved here. In South India, the inscriptional records indicate a productivity of the order of 15 tons of paddy per hectare. Today it's of the order of, our average is of the order of 3 tons of paddy per hectare. Then the early observers, European observers who came to India, they recorded in Coimbatore, in Allahabad, in Chengalpet district, very high, fairly high levels of production. We can go into the details of the nature of these records, etc. But these are the kind of records that one gets if one wants to look at the nature of agricultural productivity in India. These are of course buttressed by many what may be called as qualitative accounts of the affluence of India in historical times. I am just giving 3. One is the Greeks. The main thing that the Greeks are saying that famine has never visited India. All the Greek accounts, that they were impressed by the great landmass, the great rivers, the kind of 2 crops that were being produced here, and the fact that there was never, meaning this is the kind of impression they had. Second is this traveler from Africa who is visiting in 14th century. He is actually visiting mostly the Deccan region, and he is talking of 3 crops a year. For him it's a very unique phenomenon. This is more recent time, this Francois Bernier in talking about Bengal, and he is talking superlatively saying that we only knew of Egypt as a great land of agriculture, but look at this Bengal. It's an extraordinary land of agriculture. Food from here is going all over the world, all over whole of South India, even Africa, various places. So he is speaking of Bengal in around 1660. Now about the institutions for taking care of destitutes, institutions for handling, seeing that nobody goes hungry. This is Pahian who visited the Magadha region in 400 AD. In fact, this has been hailed as the first account of a functioning hospital anywhere in the world. Coming to more contemporary times, we have, I just reproduced from a quotation from the Raja of Tanjavur. After Tanjavur was taken over by the British in 1799, the Raja is writing that there are about 20 chatrams in the road from Pattukotai to Rameshwaram. And he is saying that these chatrams are very important, and we have assigned the revenues of the state for it. Mainly what was called the sayer from trade and the port revenues from the various ports of the eastern coast was assigned to these chatrams, and some lands were also assigned. He is saying more than 40,000 pilgrims, this is in 1800, are visiting this, passing by this region. They come from Benares, they come from Audh, that is Awadh, Ayodhya, Delhi, Aurangabad, Pune. And all travelers from Brahmins to Pariar inclusive, pilgrims of every description, and they are all given boiled rice. Those who do not choose to eat rice are given raw material, spices, etc. for them to cook. And each night a bell is rung, not to say that the food distribution is closed, but to say that anybody who has not had food should come and take. And he is continuing that there is a school attached to it, a hospital is attached to it, women who come there are delivered, children who are born there, if they have nobody, are taken care of. And he says that my country, Tanjavur, is known as Dharmarajya, not because of the great wealth that I have, but because that these chatrams are flourishing. And I take these as the greater symbols of my insignia than any other royal insignia. Okay, I come to describing some other aspect of the way Indian political system organized for the well-being of all. We have had the good fortune to look up the records of this region, Chengalpet, around Madras city. Today it's 2 districts, Kanchipuram and Tiruvallur. About 2,000 villages. The records, indigenous village records, village accounts of these districts were written down and they were collected by the British. We have been looking at it, was Junjunwala made the first set of analysis of this in 1985. Of course, we are still working in it, but I will give you some aspects of essential features of what comes out from the way the economy and polity of this region functioned just prior to British rule in 1765. Now, the area is about 7 lakh cornies, 2 colonies is a hectare, so it's about 4 lakh hectares. The crucial thing is about 50% of the land is cultivable. Uncultivated, dry land, wetland. But there is much more. There are 12% water bodies and about 17% of woods. In fact, if you, this is just a 1961 survey of India map of a region. Now maybe I can use this. Oh, I see, this is making it run away. So, let me get back to. Maybe I should not use it, or let's see. Is there a way? You know how to have it? Okay, maybe I have not found it. So, this is Kanchipuram, this is Changalpet, this is Uttarmerur, the very famous place where we have this record of the village democracies and all that, the 9th century. This is a very famous tank known as the Vivekananda Tataka. Uttarmerur had one of the highest productivities of that region. And now you can see what we have there. This was the old road, now it has become a state highway, right, crossing across the Vivekananda Tataka. These blue dots are all the various water bodies. These are the areas of the region. And you can see, and the Pala river is going here, just below Changalpet, and the Chayar river is there. And this is Madras, which usually normally you will see when you are going southwards from Chennai in a bus. So this is the kind of water bodies that you will see in many areas of India. That none of these tanks or areas were built in the last 50 or 100 or 200 or even 300 years. So one is there is a very high agricultural affluence that we can see from the records. About 5 tons of grains are produced per family. Today we are producing 1/5 of that. And there are about 3 heads of cattle on the average per household. So the same thing I put down in more detailed figures. The productivity of wetlands is about 2.85 kilograms per hectare. Productivity of drylands is about 1 kilogram per hectare. Today's national average is about 1.8 kilograms per hectare. Rather 1,800 kilograms per hectare. And this is a small sub-region of that, about 1,500 villages. And the productivity per household is about 5 tons. We will see the today's figures soon. But the most important fact is this production, there was a system of sharing. There was something called Swatantram, which was taken out before even the grains were taken to the threshing floor and measured. And there is something called Merai, which was given after the grain was measured. This is in charge of the village body, and almost 1/3 of the total produce is handled this way, in the sense that the village functioned as a state and budgeted for various activities. But this is not called budget. Each of these are called shares of various groups. And the shares, about 18% of the produce is for various local institutions, the local temples, the local cultural functionaries, meaning the teacher, the temple priest, etc. Cultivated servants, these are the people who do not have land and assist in cultivation. For irrigation, for carpenter, ironsmith, barber. Now this list you will all know, anybody who knows about villages in India. And this is about 18% on the average, and about 8 to 9% for larger institutions. So the villages were not isolated republics as they were later on categorized in the British records. There are about 1,200 villages amongst this sample of 2,000 who are giving a share of the produce to the Vishnu temple in Kanchipuram, the Chinna Kanchipuram, Badaraja Swami temple. Or about 400 villages giving a share of produce to the Tolshinga Perumal temple in Triplicate. Like that, meaning they are very highly intricate inter-regional sort of sharing mechanisms worked out. And the village which gives a share to a temple is in some sense views itself as one of those supporters of the temple. And so it will have a share in the organization and functioning of the temple. That's how it was. Kaval Tukari are the Palekarats, the local militia and the local protectors. Anyway, so this was the kind of functioning economy where about 30% of the produce is shared. Not only that, about a fourth of the agricultural land was assigned as manya, which means the revenue of that land was assigned to an individual or an institution. As you all know, collection of revenue is the right of a sovereign. So essentially this was a way of sharing the sovereignty between what may be called is the sort of a larger sovereign with the various sovereigns. This is what makes this society a multiply structured layered polity, not something that is controlled from apex and with the various institutions right down below. Now we come to something of the contemporary. So first thing was to see that what we saw as the Chengalpet average of 2.5 tons, which prevailed in per hectare, which prevailed in 1765, it came down to about a ton by 1798, and in a few more years it had come to about 650 kilograms per hectare. And this was not just the story of Chengalpet. Many of you who have read some of the literature, you know of the enormous number of famines that India had to go through in large periods of 19th century, large depletions of populations. And it's known that the agricultural productivity of India was fairly low in most of later half of 19th century, and that's the way it continued. When the British left India, we had about the paddy production was about 1 ton per hectare, and wheat at 650 kilograms per hectare. This was the nature of destruction of Indian agriculture that this country went through. Similarly, the availability of food grains also declined once agriculture declined. And in fact, it was talked about in 1880s that if we can ensure about 200 kilograms per person per year, the large number of famine deaths that were being seen could be barely averted. This is the lowest bottom that is needed, that we have to produce. This is the minimum that has to be produced to ensure that there are no large-scale deaths due to famines. So this number 200 kg per capita of food grains per year is a very important benchmark. This will come in the next 10 minutes also in my talk. Not only that, the British also taught us that the classical Indian discipline was not worth pursuing. It induced a certain skepticism, if not a total aversion, to the way classical India functioned, to the fundamental principles of classical India. So our Benting is very happy declaring even in 1829 that elite in Calcutta have stopped honoring the traditional commitments. Instead, they take great pride in ostentatious entertainment of Europeans. And Indians themselves started campaigns like this towards the middle or later half of 19th century. This was all in good intention. I am not saying that Keshav Chandra Sen wanted beggars to die on the streets of Calcutta, but he thought that it was morally repugnant to just give food to some people. So this was which is something very different from what classical Indian thought was trying to say. So, but that this kind of a campaign could be carried is very important, because it must have been so that people were practicing large-scale charity, which Keshav Chandra Sen found somewhat repugnant. So basically, modern India has been deeply negligent. Of course, a large part of our society, which is not influenced by modern education, modern thought, modern scholarship, follows with many of this discipline, many a times merely as a ritual, but many times even with the spirit of it. But large number of us Indians who may even follow this will not be able to articulate why we are doing it, or what's the basis of it, or why it's being done. And we are mostly skeptical and would like not to be publicly seen to be doing it if we can avoid it. No, but that's all right. That's an issue. That's the moral conscience of the individual. But as a society, what has happened to India in the last 40-50 years is what should be our concern. And to start, and then we can see whether the classical discipline of India is an element for reorganizing our contemporary way of life. So, what really seems to be the situation is that our agricultural production has somehow latched around the 200 kg per person per year, which was kept as the benchmark by the famine commissions of the British administrators, which was to ensure that there are no large-scale famine deaths. So in the last 40-50 years, when the British left India, we were producing about 150 kg per hectare, and in the last 40-50 years, we have just kept it around this 200, we will see it. But the situation has become much worse in the era of more rapid economic progress that India has achieved since 1991. One of the things that has gotten very deeply hit is the agriculture production in India in this period. This also something which should be very disturbing to us is what I would like to point out. First is this land and the cultivation in India as a whole. So this kept on increasing from about 100 million hectares to 125 in 1980s, and since 1990 it has been showing a downward trend. But more important is this, are you able to see this? This is the per capita production of food grains. Food grains means rice, wheat, all coarse cereals and pulses, all of this put together. So we were in about 145 around the time of independence, 51-52, and this increased, and I think by about 1980 we had reached this 190 level, and in fact in early portions of 1990 we were somewhat above 200, and now we have then come back. Of course, each individual fluctuation is not very important. Normally people should plot what is known as the triennial averages. I think what is plotted here is perhaps triennial averages only. This the work of my friend Bajaj. So, if you want to have a quick picture of what is happening in India, disaggregated, the states of Punjab and Haryana produce more than 500 kilograms per person per year. The states of Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Bengal produce around 200 kilograms per person per year, and all other states produce less than that. The southern states and Maharashtra have started declining in food production in a very steep way in the last 20 years, and the state of Kerala almost produces no food grains at all, as you will see in a minute. So this is first about what is happening in the states of India. Punjab is producing about 1000 kilograms per person per year. Haryana about on the order 550-600. Rajasthan around 210. Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand around 240 even, coming down in recent years. Okay, we can forget about this. We will come to Gujarat, which is producing only 110 currently. Maharashtra, which has had a very steep decline after 1990. Andhra Pradesh is doing all right. Karnataka, very, very steady and steep decline. Tamil Nadu, steep decline in the last 15 years. And Kerala, which is I think currently producing about 20 kilograms per person per year of food grains. Now, what is this 200 kilograms? So to understand it, we have to know something about how the world functions, or how the world has functioned in the last 50 years. So here I have given the food production of major regions of the world in the last 50 years. In 1960, you can see that China and India were more or less in the same boat. India, this is 116 million hectares of land, 82 million tons of food grains, 100 million hectares of land, 99 tons of food grain production. And world average is about in 713 hectares of land, 846 million tons of food grain production. So as you can see, India is producing about 1/7 of the world food production. No, 1/10 of the world food production in 1961. But the Indian population, as you know, is about 1/6 of the world population. Now let's come to 2010. What has happened? In fact, it has improved on 1981. In 1991 figures are even better than the 1981 figures for India. Now currently, 2010, we know there are about 690 crore people in the world. India has about 122 crore persons. China has about 135 crore persons. Now you look at these figures. 123 million hectares of land, 230 million tons of food grain production. China is producing in 90 million hectares of land, 436 million tons, about 5 tons per hectare. The Asian region itself, 371 million hectares, 1039, about 3 tons per hectare, the entire Asia. In fact, if you remove India from Asia, Asian average will go to 3.5. India is less than 2, about 1.8 tons per hectare of food grains. And the world average is about 3. Now, what is it in relation to population? This is per capita food grain production. India today 160, how much is it? 187 kilograms per person. In fact, in this entire thing you are not seeing more than 200 at all. Those particular years I have chosen because those are really fluctuations. It's lying below 200 kilograms. Whereas you can see China is 325 kilograms per person, USA is 1290 kilograms per person, Asia as a whole is 250, world is 332. And it's not that we are producing great amount of meat either. The Indian meat production is fairly low, in fact it's amongst the lowest in the world. Per capita meat production is only. In fact, to produce meat you should have 1 kilogram of meat, you should have 5 kilograms of dry grains to be fed to the animals. Without that you are not going to get the meat. So China has recently become a big producer, per capita 60 kilograms. Otherwise Asia is a fairly low consumer of meat as a diet. Of course, Western Europe and USA, meat happens to be a very important part of their diet. They produce 135 kilograms, 100 kilograms. So in their food basket, it's actually about 100 kilograms of meat and 50-60 kilograms of grains and about 20-30 kilograms of roots and vegetables. So that will be the sort of food basket in rest of in Western Europe and America. In Asian regions, it's about 100 kilograms of grains, 40 kilograms of meat, about 30-40 kilograms of roots and vegetables. So that will be. In India, out of this 187, you should sort of remove about 15% for seeds and waste. So what is available for human consumption normally will be about 160 kilograms if it's 187. If you had 200, it would be 185 or 180. And assuming that the animals are not eating it all. If animals have to eat, you have to take out more. We do produce about 20 kilograms of roots and vegetables. And so the staple food in India is staying around 200 kilograms. The world average would be about 260, 270. Asian average would be about 250. And of course Europe and Western countries may be having about 300 kilograms. Now what does it mean ultimately in terms of the calories that we are delivering? These are the average figures. So the Indian average is below 2400. 2400 is said to be the norm for an active male person working. And 2100 kilocalories is said to be the norm for a sedentary person doing sedentary occupation. So we have yet to cross the 2400 norm. You can see Asia is about 2100, 700. So by 2000, Asia, most of Asia is healthy. By about 1981, most of China is healthy. Not much before its liberalization, China has produced enough food for itself. The industrial liberalization of China occurred post the agricultural development of China. The world average is about 2,800. We can of course now go and look at the number of people who are hungry or other consequences like what is the infant mortality rate or the number of infants who are born with less weight, adequate weight and various others. I don't want to go into it. This figure should tell you by yourself that India is nowhere near even the world average and much below the Asian average. And it cannot compare itself with either the great powers of the world of West or the emerging power of the East, China. So, the facts which stare us in face is that we should first acknowledge that we are suffering from an extreme scarcity of food. It is not a problem with our public distribution system. It is not a problem with the kind of diet that we choose to eat. It is not a problem with the inequity between the father and the mother, or father and the children, or the male child and the girl child. All these are secondary issues when we have such level of deprivations going around. So the first fact is that there is a scarcity of food. This should be the fact that everybody should know, not just planning commission members and few important people, that there is a scarcity of food. All our argument on food economy and agriculture should start from this understanding. If this is not known, all the rest of what we are going to talk about will be confused or will be a sort of a fiction that we will be making for others. Now, nearly 200 years we have been living on this 200 kg per capita per year. We have to break this. So, for a population of 122 crores, if we have to have about 300 kilograms, it would mean about 370 million tons of food grain production. Or we are saying by 2025, we will be about 130 crores. So, we should plan for 400 billion tons of food grain production by 2025. This is the bare absolute minimum. This is not the same as what Western Europe is producing or America is producing. This will compare with what the rest of the world is producing, what Vietnam is producing or what Malaysia is producing. And so most countries have twice the amount of basic food grains because they are feeding their animals in a big way. Indian animals are amongst the most emaciated in the world. And we consume 1/3 less than the average food consumption in the world. So basically, what I had said in the first 2/3 of my talk, that we as a country emphasized the fact that abundance of food was the precondition for a civilized life, for a cultured life, have neglected this aspect in our recent history. And we also as a civilization thought that it's a great violation of the discipline of nature, the moral order of the world, if we do not ensure that anybody around us is not deprived, is hungry. So we should ensure that nobody goes hungry. That principle also we have become callous, both about the hunger of humans and of the animals. So, I mean, the moral is that we should return to the classical discipline of India. We should take it very seriously. We should ensure, because I don't think any great effort can be achieved by a nation where a large proportion of its people are going hungry. They cannot even, the ordinary argument, they cannot even participate in the running of the economy. In fact, if you look at the indicators of Indian economy and divide it by the population, you will find that it would be good if there were only about 20 crore people in India. The indicators would look alright. They will look terrible once you divide them by 120 crore. So every individual has to ensure this discipline, but we cannot wait till the abundance to come. We should see that the system of distribution of all basic economic goods starts, and that cannot wait for an abundance to come. This is not just an economic principle. In fact, this is the fundamental principle of Indian thought. The seeker after ultimate liberation has to see that the dharma, artha, kama, purusharthas are first satisfied in the process of seeking moksha. That Gita in the 4th chapter is saying that there is no question of even abhyudaya in this birth if you do not follow the principle of yajna. And you are disqualified in that sense for any seeking of higher ideals or higher goals in the afterlife if you do not ensure. This is the way our texts have viewed the relation between moral order of our individual and social life and the larger spiritual goals that we have to practice. That Gita is not a book on what meditation we have to do, what individual discipline we should have in terms of how we know the Creator and relation between the Creator and us. It is also a text of how we lead our lives to be able to reach anywhere in our seeking after higher ideals. And I hope if my lecture conveys the importance that has been placed to this principle in our thought and the sort of very serious problem we have gotten into by ignoring the basic principles of our basic discipline of classical civilization. If I have conveyed some aspect of it, I will feel satisfied. I thank you very much for inviting me to this lecture.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening lecture. I am sure that the audience has many questions and clarifications. The floor is open for that.
Comments?
Good evening, sir.
Also, our volunteers will be distributing feedback forms. Please fill them up and return back at the end of the program.
Sir, we understood that we are producing very less amount of grains per hectare. Yeah, first hectare. Then how can sharing make an increase in the number of grains we produce per hectare?
No, because we are not sharing, we are not even feeling the need that we do not know as educated people that what India is producing per person is about 30% below the world average. It's only the regions in sub-Saharan Africa about which we talk so patronizingly all the time, which may be producing food at the level that India is producing. So, if we are insensitive to the demands and the deprivations of humans and animals around us, we will not even know that. And in fact, as I said, in Indian thought, as per Indian thought, that the main purpose for all activities is to produce an abundance so that you can share. The bounty of nature has to be enhanced, not to prove the greatness of humans. The bounty of nature has to be enhanced to see that the food, water, air and houses are available like without any effort to all. That like air is available today, water doesn't seem to be available that way now. It was available some time ago. Food and shelter, these were available to all. And every being which comes into the world has a right to have this. And any social order that we build has to ensure this. So, if we do not have that need, we will not have the need to produce more also. That's the only reason that it's an ordinary economic argument that if you do not create the market necessity, there will be no economic activity which will enhance and produce that. But in India, it's a moral argument that proper living is not possible unless you ensure these basic things. So we do have very little, but even that little, I think a small section is consuming much more. When we are seeing that 2,300 calories. In fact, there are very detailed surveys of hunger around India and all that. I didn't want to go into all that because this is the Institute of Technology, you are not social scientists. And they showed actually in rural India, in most areas, the calories consumed is about 1,500, 1,600. This current paper of National Advisory Committee to the government, which comes up with this kind of a figure. So if this is the situation, which means 50-60% of people are eating once a day. This means others who are eating maybe 2 times or 2.5 times can reduce their consumption a little bit and eat with them. This is what would have been expected of a king in ancient India. The Arthashastra says, Raja Sukham, Sukham Rajnya, Rajanancha Tikam Tikam. Natma Sukham, Sukham Rajnya. The pleasure for a king or happiness for a king is not of himself alone. It is the pleasure and happiness of the people that constitutes the happiness of the king. Meaning, by king meaning all those who are well to do. This is what Mahatma Gandhi would have said, that people who have wealth should treat that wealth, they should treat it as trustees or whatever and share it. So, it is true that we are little, but given that little we start sharing, we should know we are producing little, so we should work out how we will produce more.
So that means, for example, if I am having 4 acres of land and I am producing 100 kg of rice, it may not be possible to produce more. Is it?
Now, per hectare, the Asian average is about 4 tons of rice. Our average is about 2.2 tons of rice. India and Asia are the main regions which are producing rice. Europe or America do not produce rice.
What is the reason? No water or fertilizer?
No, this is, I don't think I can answer that in one sentence. Our neglect of agriculture is the reason, and our neglect of agriculture is because our neglect of large scale hunger in society. This is simple answer. We can go into it in much greater detail. And as I said, historically we did produce at much greater levels. So,
sir, you pointed out that before 1765 the situation was very good, and there was a gradual decline once the British Raj came into being and also left India at under a reeling state. What are the possible changes which occurred, which you can directly say that the policy of sharing, caring, which was dwindling, has affected in the decline of production also?
so the British, I did not say the situation was very good. I said it was, our agricultural production was high. We had institutions of sharing and caring, which tried to ensure that nobody went hungry. We don't know, we have to look at our history in much greater detail to know what happened at various periods. But since we don't seem to know this aspect of India at all, I picked up a few records to show that how we were in a much more functional, much more flourishing state than we normally seem to realize we will be. Now, it's not that at some time of British rule this happened. I mean, say in Bengal, the British took over in 1757, and in 1769-70, we had a very great famine in Bengal, in which 1/3 of the population of Bengal perished. So, this is the nature of it was perhaps different from what happened, say, in the American continent, where within about 50 years of the Europeans landing there, the entire population got depleted. Here it was only 1/3 of the people sort of died in famine, in the Bengal, the famine of 18th century. And similarly in Chengalpet, South India, everywhere. So the mechanism was first the destruction of the village economy. That the village, as I showed you, this 30% it had allocated from irrigation to schoolmaster to cultural services to local militia to other larger scholars in the region. All this was taken away. The British said that we will do all this. You don't need to give for irrigation, we will take care of irrigation. You don't need to give for temples, we will take care of temples. You don't need to give for the village accountant. The village accountant will be a servant of the British state. And then they said that traditionally it is known in India that 50% of the production is revenue. So they demanded and extorted. And so by 1820, the same William Bentinck is saying, we are collecting rent at the point of bayonet in India. And then they started and created a class of Indians who became officials, administrators, part of the establishment that they had created in India and separated from the rest of the society. And by and large, that sort of the hiatus is visible even today in Indian society today. And I mean, it's not the way it was in 1850, but its effects are visible even today.
Sir, government is organizing many policies for upliftment and encouragement of the agriculture. But even then, the food production is getting low. And is that the classical model of the society was favorable and it is the guarantee to upliftment of the agricultural production, or there should be a new model? Can you give a precise view about it?
Government is doing various things for agriculture. But you take up any document, not just of the government, of the experts in India, of what should be our agricultural production. Even 10 years ago, there was one science congress which was devoted to food production. And here there was a theme paper. At that time, India had a population of about 93-94 crores, 2001. And then they said by 2015, this population will be about 110 crores. And if we can produce about 240 million tons of food grains by then, we would have sort of adequately handled the growing population. So, much of our thinking is that the majority of the country will stay at the level of what is called famine living or malnutrition. If that is the vision that we have, then all our agricultural plans are just tinkerings here and there. And when we did Green Revolution, we did it in Western Uttar Pradesh, we did it in Haryana, we did it in Punjab, and forgot about the agriculture in the rest of the country. Now India is the country which is producing dry grains at about the lowest rate of yield. In about 28 million hectares, we are producing about 20 million tons of dry grains. The world average is about 10 tons per hectare of maize. I mean American production. I think Chinese production is about 7 tons per hectare of maize. So this is what they are producing. So we are stuck with rice and wheat, which we produce about 90 million tons of rice and about 70 million tons of 60-70 million tons of wheat. Even this we should be producing much more, but we should be producing about 100 million tons of bajra, jawar and all that. And then you will have, meaning if your agricultural plan is of that nature, then you will start looking at the eastern Uttar Pradesh, looking at Bengal, looking at Bihar, looking at Jharkhand, looking at many other areas, Mahanadi Delta, and you will produce. And so it is incorrect to think that the government is making agricultural plans. Government is largely tinkering with the current agriculture. And they are saying the population is growing at 2%, agriculture is growing at 0.8%, 0.9%. The bumper year is when it grows at 3%. Then we say its bumper produce 238 million tons is considered as if we have won 10 Olympic gold medals. If we think that way, I don't think we are going to do anything. Now, the classical model is not just for the sake of food or agriculture. I think we are very ill-informed about what classical India thought and how it lived. But we cannot be sure it's a part of our being. But we are unaware, so we come out like idiots in most of the debates. As I told you, that we are unable to take a position on our culture, on our civilization, an informed position because we are totally ill-informed. So we should reflect on the basic principles of classical Indian thought as it concerns our personal life, as much as with our social and political life, as much as our scientific or technological or other public life. We have to reflect on what the classical texts say. And there may not be one view, there may be 100 views. So we have to go to experts, ask them to tell us at least in some substance what it could be. And then we can see whether it's relevant, not relevant, whether it's important, not important. But then we should also know if we followed this principle, how did we live? It may sound so outlandish to us today that a beggar is to be fed without thinking whether he is going to run away, take your food. Wouldn't it be better to teach him a trade? So this question had come up later. This is called the Protestant ethic, that nobody is to be given something that they don't deserve. That's a moral principle also. You can run societies on that basis. We did not run that society on that basis. We said it's the beggar's dharma to worry about whether he has taken food improperly from you. It is my dharma to see that I am giving it to him. Now this is one moral principle, that's another moral principle. Societies can be organized around both. But they cannot be organized around total neglect of what is going around you, which is what is happening in India. So we have to reflect.
Sir, my question is in connection to one point in one of the slides where it was written that Keshav Chandra Singh did not support giving of arms to poor. So, okay.
Yes.
So at present there are groups who are who are exploiting this act of charity. So these fanatic groups are much prevalent at present day. So what do you think? What do you think should be the course of action?
You see, the state in India which is most prosperous is the state which really indulges in the highest level of charity. The state of Punjab, where I think all records show the malnutrition is less than 5%. produces about 1,000 kilograms per hectare. This is the state where anybody can go any time in the day to a Gurdwara and have 2 rotis and dal, without anybody pushing him out. Or so, I mean, they may sort of, he comes in very black clothes, they may sort of frown at him, but still they will give him this prasad of the Guru. So that is state, I mean, this enjoined by their religion to them, and they have taken their religious principle very seriously. There are churches in many parts of the world which ensure that people don't die in their area in cold, in periods of storm. So it's not that social charity, it cannot be organized in societies in various ways. And that could have been the way these chatrams of the Raja of Tanjavur or things like that. So a large level of social charity is what is needed in India. This phenomenon of people hanging around and some others bringing them in tracks and taking their money, this is going on for the past 50-100 years. That is because all social charity has tried. And if we want to do social charity, we say open a hospital or school. And they turn out to be very good enterprises to make money rather than charity. So I think we should realize that food is the primary commodity that people have to give. A long time ago it was said that people see their God in bread or whatever. So we have to ensure public charity at the level. This is done in various regions of India by various social and religious organizations. And you can see some life, some more social activity, some more economic prosperity in those areas than in all other areas where there is really no social charity going on. This social charity was the biggest thing in India. These 1 lakh inscriptions that you see in all our temples, they're mostly about somebody instituting some money for feeding so many people in that temple for so many days or so many times and things like that. This is the basic historical record of India. But we read very little about it when we read our history, and therefore we wonder whether Indians are mean or whatever. So it's social charity that's very important. The individual charity is the matter of individual conscience between the person and the creator. But the lack of social charity is what is making all of us as human beings much lower than what we could have been.
Sir, in one of the slides you show the comparison between food produced in China and India. So total agricultural land in India is shrinking in comparison to China, and also the food grains is. So is it a policy difference or it is a...
Yes, I think it was a policy. We, as I told you, in 120 million hectares we produce about 240 million tons of food, 230, 220, 235, whatever. Then about 90 million hectares are producing about 430 million tons of food grains. And this position they reached by about 1970-75. They saw about 80 to 90% literacy in their society, and a food production level of about 250 to 280 kilograms per person per year was first ensured by about 1980, before the liberalization of China. Economic liberalization of China happened after Chinese has ensured basic education and basic food in their economy. And so the agricultural economy would not take a hit after the liberalization in the accent on services and industries coming in. So this is a matter of policy. We looked into food production in our what is called the first plan document. And the first 5-year plan talked about food production, removing the zamindari system and all that, providing some more irrigation. So we could see that from about 150 kilograms per person, the level rose to about 160. After that, the second plan, by the end of second plan, it became industrialization, became the focus of our planned economy. During the till 1980s, we had a planned economy. So that took the focus totally away from agriculture. And then when the agricultural crisis arose, the answer was given as Green Revolution, which was to produce food in small pack pockets for the entire country. And so that at least some food is available in ration shops, there are no food riots, etc. It was not to produce a great amount of food for the whole country. So it's essentially a problem of planning, and what was called Green Revolution was done in, as I told you, in Western Uttar Pradesh and Punjab and Haryana. And in fact, even now they are producing about half of India's food grain production. So we are sustaining. If we had about 30-40 other districts which are capable of producing the same kind of food, if we had produced, we will be producing this 250 kilograms per person. Meaning our food production will go up by another 100 million tons.
Sir, don't you think that there is a basic change in the psychology of people also which has come? Means in our, I come from Orissa, so there they say that if you the pata padiyona, you will do halajaro. Means you will means if you don't study, then you will do agriculture. That is the final thamki kind of which they can give. So as if it has become a sin to do agriculture or something.
You are right. But you see, in all these issues, we are looking at the victims. The psychology of the victims cannot be an answer to an issue. The people who are doing al-chala or the farmers who are committing suicide are not the people who are determining our policy, determining our thought. Maybe if we have a policy which is favorable to agriculture and if our farmers refuse to cultivate, we can ask the Sikhs from Punjab to come or somebody else, the Jats from UP to come and do the cultivation there, or maybe the Europeans can come and do it. Right now the issue is one of the people who govern the policies in India. And these are not determined either at the village level or even at the district level, and not much even at the state capital level. These are determined largely by the habit of what is left in the record by various British civil servants from about 1870 to 1950 onwards. What are there in those files? They more or less determine what attitude we take to most issues in public life. And if we cannot get out of it, so those are the main things which determine. Where a dam has to be built would have been a thing would have been worked out in 1920s. Maybe we are undertaking it today. Or whether the charity is to be encouraged or not to be encouraged would be extensive discussion will be there in the documents of the Famine Commission or something. These are the kind of things which determine our public thinking. We have to get out of that. The farmers are blamed in all this. In fact, but the issue is right now they are not party to that. They are stakeholders, but they are not party to what is happening. I think the rest of the perhaps it will be time for others to go. If there is a short comment or a question, I will take it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Professor C. Balaji, Faculty Chapter of BSc, to present a memento to our speaker. With this, we have come to the end of this program, and I request Ashish to present vote of thanks.
Respected guests of the evening, Professor M.D. Srinivas, faculties and my dear friends. We have come to the end of a very enlightening session on an important facet of our culture. I hope the ideas from this lecture will enable you to ponder over the current situation of Indian food economy in contrast with its ancient tradition of growing and sharing in plenty. As many of you are going to be the future policymakers, I hope that your musings will lead to positive changes that will enable our country to restore its ancient bounty. On behalf of BSc, I extend my heartiest thanks to our speaker, Professor M.D. Srinivas, for having taken time off from his busy schedule delivering this insightful lecture. I also thank Swami Akashadhanandaji, who has been a source of continuous inspiration and guidance in all our activities. My special thanks to Professor C. Balaji of Mechanical Department for taking personal interest in guiding our activities. My sincere thanks to the Office of Dean of Students for their kind and continuous support to all our activities. I thank the placement section for having kindly allowed us to use CLT as the venue. My thanks also to all the CLT staff whose background support helped in smooth conduction of the program. Most of our previous lectures are in public domain and can be accessed at our YouTube channel. Today's lecture has also been recorded and will soon be available at our YouTube channel. I thank Mr. Madhup Shukla of Microelectronics Lab for providing the video recording facilities. I finally thank all the past and present volunteers of BSc. BSc has grown slowly but steadily over last 16 years of its existence and is the oldest group of IIT Madras. The untiring, selfless effort of generations of volunteers have been responsible in keeping up this movement. I thank all the faculties and students in the audience who have participated in the function and made it a success. Namaskar and Jai Hind.